In this video, we're going to be breaking down the pick rates, ban rates, and win rates of all of the top characters in Marvel Rivals. Then we're going to extract meta insights so that you know exactly what characters are overperforming, underperforming, overrated, underrated, and anything in between. So we're going to jump right in, but it says only 20% of you are subscribed, so let me know down below what kind of videos do I need to make to earn that subscription, and I'll get right on it. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started. So first, we're going to look at the pick rates of the top tanks, DPS, and supports, compare that to the top win rates of the same characters, and the ban rate so that we know exactly what is being played in the meta, what are the best and worst characters, and exactly what characters you should be picking if you want to succeed this season. First, we're going to start with pick rate, and one of the things that's important to understand is that the pick rate of a character, the higher it is, the less a win rate will be relative to that. So what I mean by that is because a character is almost overpicked to a certain point, the win rate will go down because the character is often being mirrored, people are filling to these characters more than normal, and it is a character that is almost picked to its detriment, where if you see a character with really low pick rate and they have a really high win rate, people can like pick their spots with that character more. They don't play the character against counters nearly as much and things like that. So first off, let's talk about the highest two pick rate characters, Magneto and Emma, in Eternity rank, which is the highest rank that we can look at and look at what people are playing at the highest level. And Magneto has a 56.32% pick rate, and Emma has a 46.58% pick rate. These are incredible pick rates, just the most dominant, and they're the most dominant by a mile. The next tank that is picked at a high rate is actually Doctor Strange at 18%. So we're seeing like way less Groot, we're seeing very little Hulk relative to what he was previously. It's pretty much Magneto and Emma are the top two tanks, and this actually reflects what we're seeing in the pro meta right now. In the pro meta, Emma is being banned at the highest rate out of every character, and you'll actually see when we compare ban rates, the only reason that Magneto is picked more than Emma is because Magneto has a very low ban rate and Emma has a really high ban rate at 13.28%. And Magneto honestly should probably be banned more. He's really just not banned. He's not touched in ranked play. I think that's really just due to the fact that people don't understand his power level relative to what he can do. Also, Magneto is a character that I think is a little bit more team-centric. He gets more value in a team-oriented environment, but we're not going to break down exactly why he's not banned as much as he should be. We are going to break down the fact that he's undoubtedly a top-tier tank. Him and Emma are just two insane tanks right now. And then the next 5 characters in pick rate are all support characters. Rocket at a 45%. Luna at a 45%, Invisible Woman 38%, Loki 30%, Cloak and Dagger 23%. So all of these supports are played a reasonable amount in the highest rank lobbies. They're all reasonably good. They're seeing play. They are honestly doing fairly well. And one of the things that is interesting though is that Rocket has a 52.64% win rate, even though he has the highest pick rate out of all the supports. This means that he has the simultaneous highest pick rate out of all the supports that I talked about and the highest win rate. What you could actually deduce by this is that Rocket is actually underpicked, even though he's picked the most. This character is incredible, and he's not even banned. He only has a 1.58% ban rate, basically nothing. And yeah, this character is just an all-star, and this is all the way up into Eternity rank. And one of the things about Rocket is that Rocket, you can get a lot of value out of this character no matter what your mechanical skill level is. So he's actually even better as you go down in rank. So Rocket's insane. He's really, really incredible, and you can just see it here. And then all these supports are honestly reasonable. They're honestly good. But like we look at Luna Snow, and she only has a 47.61% win rate. That's fairly low. Now, it's understandable that it's that low when she's picked, probably overpicked to a large degree. And there are more vulnerabilities in Luna than there are some other supports, like a very powerful support. But she definitely does have some vulnerabilities as far as being dove, being specifically targeted and caught out of position. And I think there's also a skill gap with Luna. People are kind of filling to Luna more than they probably should, where if you're filling to Rocket, you're still going to be fairly fine. Like, you're not going to feed and die if you don't play the character at a super high level and you don't understand every intricacy with the character. You're not as punished positionally. So anyways, Luna is probably overplayed slightly because her win rate is kind of falling down to the point where it's maybe a little too low. But Rocket is definitely underplayed. And then all these other characters are reasonable. One of the things that I will note is that Cloak and Dagger has a 45% win rate, so actually not very high, even though they are picked actually at a high amount. Now, it's a little bit interesting here because we're actually seeing Cloak and Dagger C play in pro play, which is something that's a little bit strange to kind of see because the character is not really winning in ranked. Like, the character, I think, is actually just inting and feeding in ranked. One of the reasons I think Cloak and Dagger is seeing play in the pro meta more is because there's ways to synergize using your abilities together with the team to like kill through defensive ults and things like that. You can protect your Cloak and Dagger with Magneto bubbles and all that stuff. Even in the highest ranked of Eternity, it's nowhere near the same level as like scrim play or tournament play. So I think Cloak and Dagger is another character that is probably overpicked at the highest ranks, but I do think that Cloak and Dagger is actually reasonable in a lot of ranks. We can actually compare Cloak and Dagger if I go all the way to all ranks and we look at Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger jumps up a whole 2, almost 3% in win rate, most picked character across all ranks. So a character that is actually doing fairly well if you look at their all rank stats, but if you look at their Eternity stats, they're not doing all that great. And then if we look at Invisible Woman, Invisible Woman's doing fine, high pick rate, reasonable win rate at a 48%, you know, comparatively to a 37.99% pick rate. That's reasonable. You know, you're gonna expect under 50% win rates. So basically, as a general rule of thumb, if a character has a high pick rate, something above 20%, you expect their win rate to be less than 50%. And if it's over 50% with an above 20% pick rate, that character is most likely underpicked. And if it drops like below 47%, 46%, then they're probably overpicked relative to that pick rate. I think Invisible Woman is kind of exactly where she should be. Maybe slight drops in pick rate, but 37.99%, that's just insane. Loki, 30% and a 51.33% win rate. Winning a lot, picked a lot. Another character similar to Rocket that is just underplayed and underutilized. I think Loki has consistently proven himself to be one of the most dominant carry characters in the entire game. A lot of the rank 1 players, a lot of the top 100 players, there's a lot of Loki one tricks or Loki mains. And yeah, Loki's just phenomenal. I will keep talking about Loki. I think Loki is just one of the best characters you could learn to carry. So if we look at the supporting roster, Loki and Rocket are like the 2 major winners. All these supports are playable and fine. Like I said, I think Luna Snow is being a little bit overplayed. Still, you know, maybe go down from 45% all the way down to like 30%, and then she'd be fine pick rate wise. And then Cloak and Dagger is overplayed as well at the highest elos, even though she is seeing play in pro play. Now, moving on from the supports though, let's talk about some of the DPS. There are 3 DPS I want to talk about, and these are the ones that all have about a 20% pick rate. They're all sitting around right about there. Wolverine, most picked, 21% pick rate at a 53% win rate. That's crazy. And he also has a 21% ban rate. So this is what we're seeing a lot, where I think people have kind of forgotten how broken Wolverine is. And the stats show it. People in the highest ranks are banning Wolverine a lot, and he's still being picked a lot, and he's still winning a ton. A crazy high percent win rate. We're going to talk about the win rates more in a second. Wolverine has one of the highest, if not the highest, win rates in the game, even in spite of the fact that he's picked a giant amount. 20% is still a giant amount of pick rate. The most picked DPS in Eternity, and he's winning a crazy amount. So Wolverine's just insane. And this is something that's interesting. People have this perception that like, hey, if you're playing Magneto Emma, then you can't play Wolverine because Emma could go diamond form and grab you, and Magneto can bubble himself. The thing about it is Wolverine can cycle in and bait out these cooldowns, and then cycle in again and just kidnap a tank and just kill them. I think also people are getting a lot more reliable at getting the rocket jump, grabbing someone and yeeting them back to the team. So that just is going to kill somebody, like straight up. I think Wolverine's also a character that when the fight is slightly in your favor, he can go and brawl out the fight. If he's getting pocketed a little bit, he can just run at tanks and just kind of beat them up and just get a lot of value that way. And then also, he can kill through defensive ults. Like if there's a Luna ult, he can grab someone out of the ult and kill them with his ultimate. If there's an Invisible Woman ult, he can grab the Invisible Woman, take her out, and kill her. He's also good at just grabbing anything. Like Wolverine is super, super strong and super underrated. Another character we're seeing is Bucky, Winter Soldier. And this is where things get kind of weird because he's picked 20%, almost 21%. And he only has a 44.3% win rate in Eternity. 44.3%. That is terrible. That is lower than Cloak and Dagger. That is really, really bad. And what this shows is that this character is massively overpicked. Massively overpicked. People like the character. I think people feel comfortable on the character. The character is not winning. The character is not winning a lot. And I think that means that the character is probably just overrepresented. I think just people kind of feel like the character would be comfortable, and it makes sense, honestly, why Winter Soldier is not thriving. Winter Soldier was at his best in a group meta where you could brawl, you could grab people in, you could wall them off. In a poke meta where a Winter Soldier is getting zoned away by Emmas and Magnetos, two characters he doesn't really have favorable matchups against, and he's getting outranged by characters like Hela, he's just not gonna be all that great. Of course, he does get better as we compare him to all ranks. If I look at his all rank, in all rank, he's picked less, and he has a 46.4% win rate, so it's still not great. But yeah, I mean, Wolverine, I think just as a character that people are really comfortable with, people like the fact that they're not just blowing up and dying. But he's a character that is definitely being overpicked, like heavily overpicked. And then Hela is 20% as well. She is banned almost 10%, so she actually would be a bit higher. She would be in second place behind Wolverine if there was, you know, no bans, because Wolverine is more banned than her. And she has a 49% win rate, so a reasonable win rate. Honestly, you could probably see a little bit more Hela pick rate in Eternity. Anyways, we compare all of that, and those are some of like the really important outliers, the things that surprised me the most about the pick rate. I was really surprised at Rocket and Loki. I was really surprised by Wolverine's dominance, and I'm not that surprised, but I understand Magneto and Emma just being the best two tanks. But let's look over really quickly at the win rates, because there's 5 characters that are winning a ton. Let's talk about why they're winning, what exactly is happening to make them win so much. So first off is Penny Parker. In Eternity, 56.59% win rate. Now, you might look at that and be like, wow, Penny Parker, most winning, he's winning the most, definitely is the best character in the game, right? But you look at the pick rate and it's a 5.44% pick rate. So really minor pick rate. Really minor pick rate, but a massive win rate. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. This is one of the things I keep reiterating, is that the character is being picked in more specific spots. There's certain choke points, like on the symbiote map on first point defense, really, really good to play Penny. There are certain maps where Penny can be played in certain little snippets or small parts that are really getting a crazy amount of value. And then of course with the Rocket synergy also is just good, and Rocket just being so good, being able to play with Penny, I think is important. Playing the characters together, you're just getting a crazy amount of value. So Dracula's Castle, of course, that's another one. Sorry, I just want to intermingle that on defense, the first point. So there are times and places where Penny's going to get a crazy amount of value, but make no mistake, if Penny was played 20% of the time, she would not have that high of a win rate. But it is important that, you know, if you can play Penny in those little spots, you can just win a lot of games. Another one that's really wild is Iron Fist. Like right now, 55.63% win rate, Iron Fist. And he has a 9.25% pick rate. So not a 0% pick rate, actually picked a reasonable amount. So a character that is perceived to be super, super weak is actually still getting wins in the highest ranks. There is a couple of things, though, that we have to talk about. I think, one, there's a lot of Iron Fist specialists that this character definitely has a high skill ceiling when it comes to proper engagements, matchups, where to play the character. People are finding ways to still get value with this character in Eternity, even if he is objectively weaker than he was previously. There are still ways to apply team pressure with Iron Fist, apply a lot of pressure on supports, and people are finding ways to win with this character, even in a meta that he's deemed to be weak. I think this is kind of important to point out. Another character that we're not really going to talk about too much is Magic, who has actually a reasonably high win rate at a 52.76 and 11.24% pick rate. A character that people are kind of writing off this season, but obviously people are finding ways to still win with these characters. It just comes down to the fact that these characters give you enough skill expression that people that really specialize with these characters, learn them intricately and learn how they fight against the meta, can still find value and still win. Mantis also has a 53.75% win rate, our third highest win rate, but only a 4.43% pick rate. So relatively low. It makes sense that the character is having a high win rate when they're probably not playing Mantis in every single situation. There's the res comp that is really strong. I think pocketing a Black Widow can get you some extra value. And Mantis can play reasonably well in a poke composition as well. Human Torch, 53.2% win rate, only a 5.87% pick rate. So another character that is doing well in his spots, but not played all the time. But our 5th highest win rate is Wolverine. And he's the only character on this list that is actually winning in the top 5 and being picked in the top 1 DPS and still being one of the most banned. So what this kind of just shows you is that Wolverine is just completely nuts. Once again, I kind of just am just glazing Wolverine, but the stats show that he's just incredible. He's insane. And people have kind of just you know, forgot about how good this character is, but he is really, really good. And then last up, I want to talk about the bans. Storm, most banned, 39.46% ban rate, and that's crazy. She's only picked 7% of the time, but she's banned a lot in Eternity. I think there's a lot of reasons for this. One of the reasons is probably the Jeff team up. You can just kind of brute force fights through. Storm's also just really good in flyer comps, really good in poke comps, so it makes sense. And she has a really high win rate, 52.36% win rate. We are seeing some slight adjustments to the team up and slight nerfs to the ultimate of Storm, making it harder to build. So I'd imagine this goes down a bit, but also if it goes down a bit, the ban rate will go down a bit, and then you'll see more Storms. So I think Storm is still going to be fine. Wolverine, second most banned character, for all the reasons we talked about, just being able to delete a tank and honestly grab squishies, good against defensive ults, good. Hawkeye, third most banned, and this is the weird thing here, okay? Hawkeye is the third most banned character in Eternity games. He only is winning 46% of the time. So it's a character that is banned a ton, and he's not winning. He's played 8.27%, but the character is really not winning. And this is one of the things that I think is hard to evaluate, and it's easy for people to just look at patch notes and look at cool synergies and think, wow, something's broken. Hawkeye actually lost a huge amount of power going into this patch without the team up, the synergy. Because one of the things he could do before the changes to patch 2.5 is he could pop his ultimate, he could use his E, his cone, and he could one-shot any 250 HP hero character because it would hit him with the first blast and then the second blast. So that would be just a combo that he could set up himself. You know, he sees a squishy, he sees whatever, a Loki or whatever, he pops his ult, he presses his cone, he kills a Loki, right? If they don't use cooldowns. He can't do that anymore, but now he has the fun Luna freeze ability, which is really strong, don't get me wrong, but you need a Luna, you need to be playing a Luna, which we already kind of established that she's being overpicked a bit. Even though she is really strong, she is being overpicked. And even in spite of that, they're not dominating, like they're not winning a crazy amount. I do think that people are more annoyed or afraid of Hawkeye than he is good, and I think that's fair. It's really frustrating to lose to a Hawkeye getting one shot, but the stats don't show that he is dominating. The stats just show that he's actually really underwhelming, but he's banned at a really high rate. Fourth most is Hulk. He's being banned 21%. He has a high win rate, 52.46%, 12% pick rate, so a reasonable pick rate. I think he's like the fourth or fifth most picked tank. Way less than Magneto and Emma, right? But still pretty highly picked. And this one makes sense. This one's reasonable. Hulk is doing really well. Of course, the Namor synergy is really strong. It counteracts a lot of strategy. So this one makes a lot more sense, and it's reasonable. And then the fifth most banned character is Emma, 13.28%. And, you know, even in spite of that, she's picked 46.5% of the time, still with an above 50% win rate. Just a freak of a character, just nuts. She's also like the most banned character in pro play right now. So, yeah, Emma's just absurd. We all know how broken Emma is. I did want to enter in the last character to talk about is Iron Man. He's the sixth most banned character, 12.89%, 51.34% win rate. The character is really strong. He's paid about 10% of the time. The character's really nuts. He's really strong. I think we're seeing some Iron Man bans alongside Ultron. Ultron's banned 8.88% of the time. I think we're seeing a little bit of those interchangeably. You know, you ban Iron Man, Ultron loses the synergy. You ban Ultron, Ultron enables the Iron Man comp a lot better. One of the things also is Iron Man's just like good against a lot of things. He's good against flyers reasonably because he can initiate the duels, you know, being able to get the overhealth and beam any flyer. He typically has a favorable matchup. He's also good against a lot of these supports because he can kill them through support ults. He's also good against the ports because he can just kill them through support ults. And yeah, I just think Iron Man is just a generally all-around good character, and it makes sense that he's banned this much, and he still has a 51.34% win rate. So when he is being played, he is winning quite a bit. So I would say he's a bit of an underrated DPS. So if we're kind of summarizing a lot of our findings here, because I know we're kind of all over the place here, let's summarize what we really found. So what we found is that Wolverine is really underrated, just insanely powerful, even in spite of his bans. Iron Man is a bit underrated. Hela is properly rated as really strong. And then furthering on the DPS, Bucky and Hawkeye are very, very overrated right now. Very overrated characters that are picked too much, banned too much. Hawkeye's banned too much, but both of them are being picked too much, especially Bucky's being picked way too much. Then we look at the supports, and for supports, Rocket and Loki are just underrated still, even though they're seeing a lot of play. They're just really dominant and winning a ton, even in spite of them being picked a ton. Luna's being slightly overpicked, even though she's still really strong. Invisible Woman's being picked a lot, but probably fairly so. And then Cloak and Dagger is, you know, underperforming in the highest ranks, but doing reasonably well across all ranks. And then is actually seeing pro play. So it's a weird thing going on with Cloak and Dagger. I'll say Ultron is also doing fairly well, even if he hasn't picked a crazy amount. He's like the 6th most picked support, but he's actually doing fairly well, and he plays along with this poke meta that we're seeing, flying meta that we're seeing sometimes. And then when we're looking at the tanks, I mean, Magneto and Emma are just the most dominant. Emma probably would be the most dominant without the bans. Magneto, not seeing any bans at all. Most likely should be seeing some amount of bans. I think people are super underrating the power of Magneto at just denying Iron Man ultimates with his ults, killing supports with his ults, bubbling and enabling people, denying Punishers, denying so many different characters. Magneto most likely should be getting banned with that level of pick rate and win rate, but he's just not seeing any bans. Then we're seeing a reasonable amount of Hulk bans and win rate and pick rate, so he seems like a reliable third option that we could see. So some of the characters that we're seeing, and then, you know, characters that are just not really seeing a lot of play anymore. Captain America seeing relatively low play. Groot seeing way less play than he was before. Venom seeing almost no play right now. The Thing down to the dumps, 44.86% win rate in Eternity. The character's not winning, just not doing really well at all. So these are kind of some of our outliers, and we can get a little snapshot of the meta of characters that are incredibly underrated and then characters that are really dominant. But this is my meta snapshot for this season. I'm very curious to see how things are going to change with some of the small changes that we're seeing in patch 2.75. But let me know down below exactly how you feel about the state of the meta. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What changes do you want to see in the new season 3.0? And smash the like, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Thank you so much for coming by, and I'll see you next time.